clothing-wise. Very demure today, as you'll see. We, having done the driver test last week, the request was to do the fairway ones as well, so we're going to do that today. So, like last week, we're not both going to hit everything, but we're going to sort of alternate a little bit. Going to hit each of the heads we've got: the Callaway, the Titleist, Cobra, Mizuno, TaylorMade, Ping, Srixon, and get a little look at what they're doing. Send us as many questions as possible. Talk about what we're seeing when we're fitting with them, things to kind of where their strengths and potential kind of weaknesses, if you could put it, their strengths and weaknesses are, and really take it all from there. So, and we're both going to claim we're feeling a bit stiff and not swinging very well. Get that out of the way now. So
yeah, definitely.
So
after last night,
where should we start with? Start with
Ping, Mr. Popular.
Okay.
Yeah, let's start with Mr. Popular. Why not? It seems to be everyone either wants to try it or it works perfectly. So
yeah, as a head, I think this is going to be one of those heads that we pretty much go to as a marker point. I think we do it with shafts. We've got a shaft that we know works very, very neutrally. I think the Ping head's something which is an all-round performer. Certainly so far, I've seen some really good results with it. Sales-wise, fairway driver fairway hybrid are all going to be pretty strong this year, I think.
I think that's going to be across the brands. I think there'll be a lot more people looking at, I think, all the woods this year, because we've actually got some fairway woods that seem to be making a bit of a difference.
Yeah, wood-wise, it feels like it's a strong year. I know there were talk about, is it a very good year for driver? I think across the board, I think woods across the board, hybrids, just there seems to be a little bit more playability across them. I mean, Ping with the 430, the driver, they saved a bit of weight in the LST with the composite crown, a couple of grams, but the fairway 10 grams. So they've been able to shift quite a bit of weight south in the head.
Explains the extra launch that comes with it.
So for those that will inevitably ask, Kyoshi Purple 75 stiff is the shaft that I use in fairways. Used that a number of years now. Just weight-wise has always worked. A little bit of kick in the tip, and yes, the colour gets lots of comments. And no, I do not own a pair of purple trousers. So I think the Pings have yeah. I try. I can't find any. The Pings have always sat really well. It's a really nice sole shape that seats, that kind of finds its own position. Really, you don't feel like you've got to find where the club sits well. I think that's where through 400, 410, 425, that's always been a good marker for them.
It's often a battle that a lot of people have with fairway woods, is trying to work out, how do I put the thing down?
Yeah. So one of the things this year, I think 410, 425, the base loft was a little stronger. They've gone from 14.5 to 15, 17.5 on the 5 wood to 18 on the 5 wood. And that allied to the lighter crown, it definitely picks the ball up a little bit. I think they were never high launching.
No, they always used to be the low launch but relatively high spin would then get the flight, whereas now it's very much a high launch and a slightly lower spin. Which, to be honest, we've been wanting from Ping for a few models now, so it's good to see them come back to it.
When we were loosening up, I was hitting everything miles out the heel and thinking it was going to be horrendous. I actually found a fairly centred strike there. So, relatively upper mid launch for me. But spin in check, and a very, very stable head. Really, it's a very easy feeling head to hit. I think the sound's better again than last year. And definitely a head that if you're looking to help get a little bit of launch and feel like it gets into the bottom of the ball easily.
Yeah, they have suffered over the last few iterations of that, much like with the driver, but it seemed to be fairway wood was worse with that real tinny, tinny sound. So it's nice to see that they've resolved that. But
the composite in the crown making a big effort. Yeah.
Always helps.
So I think certainly for anyone looking for a very user-friendly head, it's got that nice shallow face. So what Ping do well, have done for a number of years, is the way they mark the face. You're seeing all the loft. You're seeing the bottom half of the face. Thanks, Evan. So what that does when you're looking down at it, you can see the bottom bit of the face, the leading edge. So it shows you all the loft. So it's not an intimidating head to look at. So I think as an all-round user-friendly mid-flighted head, that's a great base point for anyone.
Where should we wander next? You tell me where you want to go to. Where do you want to go as a comparison to that?
Let's go. Where should we go? Let's go Callaway. Let's go Callaways.
Let's go other end of the spectrum to start off then.
Do you want me to do these, or do you want to do these ones?
Let's go triple diamond.
So Matt's fairway shaft is Ventus Black 7X, unsurprisingly. So needs a slightly
different adapter.
Let me get the other adapter from the other way. Needs a slightly stiffer tip than I do. So, okay. So Callaway's this year. Let's see where that one goes. I think the main difference with the cars, they've gone back to adjustable hosels on the 3 woods.
Which we were very thankful for.
Which, I'd say from a fitting point of view is great. I know the arguments for not doing it are you can save weight in the hosel, allowing you to put weight in a better place in the head, make it more optimal weight positioning. And so the engineers, the designers are all for fixed hosel. And Tour prefer the look. It's a slightly cleaner look on the hosel. So that's why the Tour players tend to prefer the glued, and they'll do a glued version for Tour. But from a fitting point of view, it gives us just more versatility. We can do a bit more with the setup, toe it in, add a little loft, take a little loft off. You find the right flight window a little bit more easily.
Gone triple diamond to start out, so we've got no marking on the top.
Yeah.
Which is probably the main thing to talk about between the various variations of the paradigm. Is standard model, you get the typical triangle that you see with all the Callaway products. But the triple diamond, they've got rid of that. Much like with the driver.
Continuity with the driver, yeah.
Yeah.
And face markings in terms of colour, have they just kept the groove markings, so
slightly
different. Yeah.
Didn't even notice that one. Yeah. Slight difference on the groove markings. Slight difference on the groove markings there. You've got with the standard model, you get that framing on the sides of that centre point, whereas with the triple diamond, you just get grooves straight across the face.
Yeah, triple diamond, weight a little further forward, so based around like the old Sub-Zero models, getting the weight lower, further forward, slightly more solid feel, but in principle, little lower spin. Yeah, this is certainly a head I play the Epic Flash Sub-Zero. This is certainly a head that I'm interested at putting in. I think my initial test was how the consistency of spin was. So as we all know, Matt's got ridiculous amounts of speed, and with that normally comes ridiculous amounts of spin.
Yes, I battle the 4,500 spinning fairway wood quite a lot.
And that one came, obviously pretty neutral numbers, well hit, but that's quite a strong spin number for you. We haven't lofted it down. It's just
that's just that
loft
15,
position.
no trickery. That's quite a nice place to see an option for a fairway wood. Having battled for the last 2 years with a Titleist fairway wood that went to the moon, and then even that 425 LST can spin up a little bit.
Yep.
Gets kind of upper 3s, low 4s. To see this down at that is quite an impressive feat.
And for me, what I've not seen with it is a knuckleball spin. I think the consistency of where the spin is on this head, and that's what I think quite appeals to me. I've really enjoyed the Epic Flash. I think it's been a great head for how I use it more as a teeing off club. But you occasionally get a little bit of toe on really takes a spin off, a little bit of helio on really flares a spin up, and I've been quite impressed with how consistent the spin is on it.
Let's see if I can hit one out the toe then, shall we? If anything, that was more slightly low on the head.
Lower on the face, yeah.
Yeah.
At your speed,
that's the one I always battle.
Like that. And the danger is, actually the danger for you in terms of controlling the spin is that you then end up with the really low spin when you middle it.
Yeah. That's always the concern with a 3-wood and a head and shaft combination, is you don't want anything that's too low rocket, because then when I do have to tee one up or hit one bang at the centre, it's a 2,100.
Yeah, it's a driver.
Good luck stopping that.
Yeah. But ball speed wise, considering not necessarily right at the middle, that smash number, very, very consistent.
Yes.
Really maintained ball speed. So yes, the spin's gone up from a bit of gearing, but ball speed very consistent.
The fact I'm still getting 170, pushing 179 on a day where everything feels a little stuck is testament to this thing, really.
Yeah. And it's a very solid feeling head too.
Yeah, it feels great. That was Healy. That'll be interesting to see. That was a very Healy swing.
Yeah, so for a very Healy one, again, for you, 4-2, not that extreme.
No, can't complain at that.
Seeing as you started with the Callaway, you can hit the other Callaway as a comparison.
Yeah.
So the standard, kind of a standard paradigm model, again, for me, I've seen this produce some quite strong, in fittings, some quite strong flight numbers.
Yes, yeah, it's one of those at times you kind of compare it to the triple diamond and you think, actually, what difference is there apart from shape?
Yeah.
Some of the flight numbers can get a bit, not punchy, it's the wrong,
but
the wrong
that's
turn of phrase.
Similar driver-wise as well, though, isn't it? I think what we've seen is,
very low spin all the way.
The Cobra drivers, the Callaway drivers, they've kept the spin strong with both model types. It's just that this one's a little bit drawbars, a little bit bigger in terms of shape, slightly shallower profile, a little bit turned in terms of the face, so a bit draw biased.
It does sit closed.
And I think most of the ones I'm going to do of this are going to be lofted up a little bit.
Yeah, just putting that down, it does look closed, I will be honest. But maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. But as you say, for the people it's designed for, that little closed look is pretty good.
And I think one of the strengths of the Rogue series was that shallower face, and it was really nice to see they kept that, because a lot of players like to see a friendly looking fairway wood, and so no surprise to see at your speed, you can say, well, it's actually quite a high spin, but actually when you go to a lower speed, the spin's not as exaggerated, but again, very strong ball speed.
Really good smash.
Not flaring launch angle up, but just giving a little bit more. And say it's always going to be exaggerated at max speed, but giving a little bit more spin, a little bit more flight, but a lot more forgiveness. That was hit.
Left, I think, but hit.
Yeah. So again, spin
light.
only 300 revs more than triple diamond. So as we were saying,
impressive.
the spin differentials aren't huge.
Impressive. Very impressive.
But again, ball speed. 147 efficiency. I'm going to gloss over what ridiculous ball speed you got over that. But it's I think ball speed maintenance. They've been I found quite a hot head actually this year.
Yes.
So if you're looking for a strong hitting distance-based fairway, actually a really good model.
Are they doing either the triple diamond or the standard model in lower than 15? Do you know?
Triple diamond is a 3+. Yeah.
Okay, so there will be if someone really struggles with driver, there is an option with how low spin they are. You could almost build a mini driver.
Yes, because I think it's. Oh, right. One of the TaylorMade and the Callaway don't. I'm just trying to.
The TaylorMade is only 15.
15.
They're not doing a 13.
There is the 3+ in the Callaway. Yeah.
Yeah. So just thinking from someone that maybe struggles a little bit with driver off the tee being that bit longer.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you go to the 3+ at 43.5 inches, for example, and you've got the adjustability, turn it down to 12.5 and you've got yourself a small driver. Yeah,
and for that kind of player, possibly the drawbars on the setting as well. You can make it into that kind of, it's a 1.5 wood, 2 wood kind of setup. So
rather than your traditional.
So any questions as we go, please fire them in, as many as you like. We'll, as per last time, we'll answer them as we go. So just moving on to, so again, just to recap, we're going, as we did last time with the drivers, Matt's joining me to not fatigue me too much, but and also I think it's a bit of we can converse about what each of us is finding in fittings, but going through the 3 woods, so the same kind of setup, hitting them, looking at what the flights are, performance, and then talking a little bit about what they're good at, the kind of things we're seeing in the fits for the players, the suiting, and where we'd be looking to use them. So we've done the Ping and the Callaway. Just going to move on to the Cobra. So we've got the standard aerojet model first. Quite a neat looking head. I actually quite like the visuals on this.
I haven't seen this one, I will be honest.
The triple diamond, the LS literally came in the other day, and the 5 wood's really quite compact. And that's almost the size of the U wood.
So if they continued with that Tor 5 wood in the LS being the smaller.
Quite a lot smaller, yeah.
Lovely.
A bit like the Pings, actually, again, I didn't mention on the Callaways actually, but all of these, what's noticeable over this last couple of series is how much more neutral, how much flatter the soles are. They've all got a much more level sole, so that actually when you put the club down, it literally seats. You're not having to find that kind of square point. It's not rolling around on the sole, even in some of the lower spin models as well. So just a really, it's a very smooth sole shape, quite a neutral, one might say kind of inoffensive fairway look from the top. They've got a little line just inside the back edge, which sometimes can kind of make it look just a little bit more compact as well.
They have definitely simplified the look over the last 3 iterations, both in driver and fairway wood.
Yeah.
As a man that has the F9, comparing my F9 to that aerojet driver, it's a different club.
Yeah, does a very clean look. And where Cobra have always historically been the ones to go out there with the visuals. They've really kind of pared that back. So you've still got that composite weave on the crown. I think the one thing to note, I'm about to hit it, but I think is the sound of the Cobra woods this year. They're a little bit of a harder sound.
Okay.
A little bit more of a, I don't know how you describe sound, but it's not a high pitch sort of like the Ping 425 was. It's not that kind of tinny note, but it's a very, very solid sound off the head.
It's been the first time I hear this one here. I have not had the Fairway wood at all in anything yet.
It's a little bit matte and ball.
I'd hope so at 2,500.
Yeah.
With a spin rate of that number, we'll pin that on a ill strike.
So it's not the liveliest sound. Well, that was a little bit toey. It's not the liveliest sound.
Yeah,
in
it's
the
a very
world.
quiet. They've almost gone for the inoffensive all the way across.
Yeah.
You know, versus Cobra of old, where it was so loud, so loud and bright, you didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. And so that one, little bit toe, but again, you can see where the spin is. I think that's noticeable with this head. I'm just going to do one to see if I can find relatively near the middle of the face. But I think, I was saying earlier, you know, the Callaway head, this head, a couple of other heads we're going to come on to later on. You know, the Ping's a bit more neutral spin. It flights, it's not high spin, but it retains a little bit. And a bit like drivers, I feel like with fairways, you're going to be lofting up a lot, or there are going to be certain heads, a couple of heads that spin it that little bit more, but not many. I think we're going to be going up in loft quite a bit.
Going to be continuing the trend of a 5 wood rather than a 3 wood.
Absolutely. That's a better hit. The Cobras have a very particular sound in the backswing.
That little kind of whoosh that comes with it, yeah.
That was proper hit. Just ignore the 25 miles an hour down on that. But again, from a flight point of view, for somebody who's always been, I'm much less now at fairly spinny, it's a really good ball flight. It's a very mid to stronger mid ball flight. There's no pop up in spin. Launch, it's not a massively high for me, not a massively high launching head, but a very stable ball flight.
And actually, yeah, you look at the flight of it. It's not a. I mean, I've seen you hit some of the other ones through the kind of last year, and the flight of some other fairway woods are much higher in a peak than that. Yeah. That Cobra's come out, which again, it's just nice to have the options across the board from the different brands doing their own things slightly differently. Yeah. For us is great because then you get the certain situations where certain heads are needed, and other times it's you go to the higher flight, the lower flight.
Yeah, although I think they're just going to be I'd maybe like to see one more head that gives it a bit more launch. I think that's one of the
a bit more old school flight to it.
Yeah, because a bit like irons this year, we've seen Mizuno do the HL, you know, Ping with the 430, designed to kick it up a little bit more. Yeah. They've recognised they've gone a little bit too far, and
is that going to be the job of next year?
Yeah, I mean, Ping with the 430 have reined the loft a little bit and picking it up a little bit, but you've got TS1 that will come onto it, does that. I guess you get the HD, the TaylorMade that does that a bit. It feels like most of the standard models are quite Canon-like.
Strong, yeah.
I think there's a question coming.
Well, it's a question stroke statement from Nigel Bradwell. Thanks for watching, Nigel. Hi, I play TaylorMade Stealth Plus 9 degree Ventus Black 60X. Need more launch, but bad shot is left. I'm guessing there's a question there. Any recommendations?
So, well, you've got two parts of the club that are designed to knock the flight down. So you've got the Stealth Plus, which is a lower spinning, lower launching head, and you've got a Ventus Black, which is a stiff tip, lower launching shaft.
And you also 9 degrees.
It's a 9 degree. Add in the fact that your miss is left, you turn the loft down as well. So everything about that is a smother hook. Well, the left because of the face. So you've got that over the top move as well as a head that's designed to knock that down. So dependent on setup, you know, if you don't know where the swing numbers are, there is, if you get the face squared off more, it will flight more.
So speed 116.
So, yeah, more loft is certainly an option. Certainly the shaft sounds,
that would be my immediate thought. Would be try the 10.5.
Yeah, and again, depends on angle of attack, face angle. You know, if you're going up that way and then rotating the face down, then you're getting a nosedive delivery. So if your miss is left, then there is a technique element in there which is going to affect that too. So if you can work what feels like a fade, you're going to leave more loft on, square the face up, not miss it left, flight it more. So I think there are two things at play here. One would be that going higher loft is not going to solve going left. That's a technique element. Or on the face of it, there can be things with the club that can help with it, but on face value, that's swing rather than club, especially with that setup. But yes, higher loft will pull launch and spin up a little bit, but it won't solve the left.
Whether you cheat a little bit and go higher loft, base loft, knock it down to open the face, especially with TaylorMade, because it would then open the face.
Yeah,
and
has
use
a little
that
bit
to kind
more
of
movement.
cheat the one that wants to really turn over. Just try and protect it a little bit.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Seriously, any questions doesn't necessarily have to be about fairway woods, just send them in and I shall relay them to the guys.
So moving over to the LS of the Cobra, so you can see the weights move to the front. Base loft down at 14.5 rather than 15, so they've, as with all the low spin models, weight lower, further forward, a little bit more compact shape. They've actually lost the lines around the back edge there as well, so you haven't got that framing of the back edge of the
Is it deeper like it has been in previous years? Sorry, that's just a personal question.
Very, 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 very marginally. Okay. I mean, if we put them up on, I don't think you'd see it.
You wouldn't even notice it.
Very marginally. It's just it's a little more squat, a little bit shorter front to back.
Right. Okay.
Actually, looks like a flatter face, a little less bulge and roll. It's a very straight face onto that. Very classic look.
They've always done I'm just noticing it with when you just flip the LS around there and just looking at the one on the side here. They've always been quite short on their grooves on the face. Yes. They don't go to the edges, and I've had times in fittings where people have said they feel like the head's tiny, the face is tiny. The head might be big, but the face feels tiny because the grooves don't. And it's just one of those things. It's almost what made you, as a brand, what makes them decide that that's the. Maybe it's just to frame it from a player's perspective, frame the middle.
Yeah, it's in the same way that Ping do around the outside to make it look, to show you the bottom half of the face. Callaway with the Triple Diamond have a different face pattern on the driver. It's dark rather than light. I guess, it's a formula that they've chosen to do consistently over the years, isn't it?
Simon, David Brett saying, are we testing the PXG Gen5? I couldn't see it there.
I haven't got it out, but we can get it next door. Yeah, we can certainly add that one in. Yeah. So that's a very classic look. Very solid feel. Let's just loosen a little bit. Let's tighten that screw up again. Very solid feel to hit with. Just threaded.
Oh dear.
I'll put your shaft in, it's not too different. Lovely. You see, you can tell it's live.
Always a problem.
Just very slightly strip that screw, right.
Do you want another?
No, it's all right, this one will be fine. A little bit more compact, very solid feeling head. I think that's certainly fair to say. Actually, it must be that tip's just slightly broader. Grab the other one from next door. A little bit, considering the head just gave a little bit, they're good ball speed. I think similar to what I found with the drivers, the slightly more compact heads I've always done well with ball speed from. For one where the head's given a little bit, spin pretty neutral. Hopefully that'll fit. Running repair. Yeah, great, thanks. So.
Or is it the screw?
No, that's fine. Right, let's give that.
Now he's got an excuse if he doesn't hit it well. It's not the right shaft.
There's always an excuse. So, right, so pretty solid hit. Maybe touch more toe side, but yeah.
Oh, so that spin's strong.
Spins a little bit lower. Launch pretty similar, not that different in launch, and that was what we highlighted with the standard model. It's not a head that's kicking it up. It still keeps that flight pretty strong, about 10% lower on spin, but certainly again weight forward, a little bit more solid feel. I think it's very much a traditionalist kind of look and feel. I think anyone who wants to see a head that encourages flight, is not going to like that gap at the top above that groove almost highlights the depth of the head, kind of sits up and over the top of the ball a little bit more. So it definitely feels like a head that you can knock down pretty easily.
Which I think is what they do differently to, just coming on to one we'll talk about later, the Stealth, where they've got
might as well go on to
where they have that alignment line across the top, that silver alignment line. It almost makes it shallower look.
100%. Yeah,
versus that thing you noticed there with the Cobra of them feeling like they're the other way. So
I would say absolutely TaylorMade are going for that. I think that where the face blends into the crown, I think you kind of lose a little bit of the height of the head. So, or do you want to? You want to do Terry? You want to do the Srixon one? We'll go.
I'll do the TaylorMade. Well, let's start with the Plus model then. At least let's do the.
So I think that all these sort of visual tricks, the TaylorMades do sit quite tall. They've got the composite crown, they've got the weight, or the thinner crown, they've got the weight low, but by actually that line on the top was dropping the top of the face down, that then makes it look shallower and look like it sits a little bit lower and can get under the ball. But they've always produced a very strong performance off the faces. TaylorMade are not historically not a brand you're using to kick launch angle up. You're using it to get the ball going as far as possible.
Right. Should we leave the weight in the back on this one? Should we?
I think so. Yeah. I think we can do a couple with weight back, weight forward. This is the Stealth Plus 2, Stealth 2 Plus this year. Main difference being they've got that sliding weight in the sole that you can move the weight back to create a little bit more spin. It's a 50 gram, 80 gram, 50 gram sole weight that you're moving about an inch back and forth.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's the difference between the front of the head and the back of the head, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and in terms of centre of gravity, you don't have to move very much. A couple of mils makes a difference. So it's a lot of weight moving quite a long way within the head. So the one, if there was a criticism, Stealth Plus first gen was a really good head.
Yeah, it was almost too good that you there were times it was trying to find a Stealth Plus that worked for someone.
Yeah.
Was a battle in itself because it was just too strong.
Came out too strong, yeah.
So they've almost had to rein it back a little bit with this one, I think. Let's see. So this is weight back.
Yeah.
And
strike-wise, a little lower on the face?
Touch.
But that one's slightly lower on the face, but up over 4,000 on spin, which, as we were saying earlier, for Matt isn't ridiculously high, but for where last year's model was, is pretty high.
There's too many things cracking and popping.
Okay, that was hit. Yeah, so still hit well.
4,000.
And still 3.9, so still plenty of flight.
Have we got a wrench? There was one over there.
Yeah.
Just pop that down to the bottom end.
Just to highlight what we're doing here. So that silver weight, that is in its fully back position, so it's moving the centre of gravity as far back as possible. What I'm going to do now is slide that all the way forward. So you can see how far that's moved. And what that does is pushes the weight towards, still low, but towards the front of the head, which should see a noticeably lower spin.
Simon, is it 25 grams?
50.
So in a head that's 213, 15 grams, it's almost 25% of the weight of the head, which is a lot. It's a massive amount to be moving, and proportionate to the size of the head, the amount it's moving is a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean it's ultimately moving from the front edge to the back edge. Like it just feels different in the.
Yeah, so ball speed's up, and spins down 500 revs. Yeah,
and I felt like I could, just from a feel perspective, it felt like I could get more on top of it through the ball.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the head was fighting and going away from me where there's, I know that then comes down to a person-to-person thing.
But this is something we found with the Paradigm Triple Diamond driver.
Yes.
When you moved the weight front to back, it swung, it felt different to swing.
Yeah, it felt easier to, with the weight back, it feels easier to create a bit of an arc and hit up on it a bit more. Weight forward tends to squeeze it out, which, same thing here, so.
question from Andy. Thanks for tuning in, Andy. Guys, what are your views on choosing a 3-wood for off the tee against one for hitting from the fairway? I find my 15 Titleist in Ventus Blue stiff great off the tee, but tough to launch from the fairway.
It's about where you use it most. I think they're ultimately, in an ideal world, we'd be looking to have a club that you can use off the fairway. But if you're only using it off the tee, then you've got to prioritise that. But you know, it's still a fairway wood, and it needs just a hair more loft to make it playable off the deck, without losing too much in terms of flight and consistency off the tee. But yeah, for me, I can't speak for that. For me, it's a bit of a. I'd always like it to be usable off the ground, unless you literally say, I'm just going to use the 5-wood off the deck.
Yeah, but I mean, often the case is. Often the case I find is if 3-wood's strong off the tee, and it's a club you use off the tee, it then becomes a 5-wood is a better way to go for a club off the deck anyway.
Yeah.
Just it tends to be as a mechanic's perspective. If a 3-wood's strong off the tee, a 5 you're not lofted impact. You need that little bit of extra that a 5-wood will give you to flight it for off the deck. As a general rule, see that's not the case every time, but as a general rule, if you hit a 3-wood really nicely off a tee and it goes strong, but you struggle to flight it off the deck, a 5-wood in the same kind of feel, in the same relative setup, will be a lot easier to pick it up.
And something I think we'd all say we're seeing more and more over the last few years is where balls have got lower spin, so you can see heads are going lower spin, getting proportionately the same loft flighted has become harder and harder. We're doing many more 4-woods or 5-woods as a first fairway wood. You rarely do you drive a 3-wood 5-wood. We're more often going driver 4-wood 7-wood or driver 5-wood and then into hybrids potentially. So definitely doing more lofted fairwoods than we've ever done before. And this will be something that we plan to do with, I know some of the comments have been, can we get a more normal swing on? And this is definitely one of the recorded videos we're going to do, hopefully soon, with a lower club speed player with 3-wood versus 5-wood to show actually a lot of players will carry the 5-wood as far. And it's just a lot more reliable club. But
and actually have more control because it will spin 600, 700, 800 RPM more. You'll actually be able to stop the thing into a green on a par 5 or a long par 4. Yeah.
Or even it actually gets enough spin to get it a traditional 3-wood flight. Yeah. But to go back to the question briefly, in an ideal world, your first fairway wood back from driver would still be playable off the ground. It's just a case of saying, right, what's your priority of using it? Is it as a fairway wood or mainly off the tee? And then are you erring to a stronger flight or a little bit more flight and tune it in from there?
Let's give this one another go.
So it could be a slight adjustment on loft would help get that little bit more flight for you.
Oh, that's low on the face. That's what happens when you have to. You take a minute and don't take a practice swing.
But I mean, interesting, even low off the face there, you can see, again, ball speed retention.
Wow, 3.8.
Something we're seeing, across the brands. But, that previous shot of yours, I mean, this one, if you put it in its lowest loft setting and then the weight forward, you're back into that bomber of a 3. I mean, that's possibly the only thing we'll miss the 13.5 head for, is that one you could set upright and have the loft and help the toe come through. To get that loft with this head, you've got to loft it down. It's going to open the face.
I do wonder, now this is me just having thought about years past and being a bit of a theoriser of what may be coming. I do wonder if there's a mini driver on the horizon again, because it was Sim 2 when they did the mini driver, and they only brought the mini driver out because they said the Sim 2 titanium fairway wasn't as strong as they wanted in the rocket. Yeah. So I do wonder if, because they're not doing a rocket in this, does that mean a mini driver's on the horizon?
Was that 300 series that launched briefly, a limited run, very limited edition, and actually seemed relatively popular if you could get hold of one.
Another question in from Mark Griffin. Thanks for tuning in. I'm a mid-handicap player, and I was hitting some old blades a friend had. I hit it further and better than my fitted JPX hot metal irons. Have you ever seen that in the bays before? And can you maybe say why it happens?
Blade to one of those. I've I've seen players who strike less forgiving clubs better before, definitely.
So they have to focus and think a bit more.
Yeah, in certain impact positions, a little more on top of them, the weight sits higher in the head, and you can get a better strike. Sometimes you get better feedback, so you can find the centre of the face a bit more. There is that theory. Sometimes when you borrow a friend's club, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work, you can give it back, you free the swing up a bit more. I've definitely seen that before. But in terms of...
it may just be a simple thing of loft as well.
I need blades to the hot metals.
Because there's such a, in the sense of, because there's such a, what we're talking, 7 degrees of difference between a traditional blade and the hot metal is, if the hot metals maybe don't have enough, if it's a 6 or 5 iron and they don't have enough loft on them, the flight's then too low, whereas the equivalent iron in the blade would be more like your 7 iron in flight, that actually it then gives you the extra distance versus yours. So it may come down to launch characteristics in the longer irons, if that's where you see the difference of the blade actually carrying a little bit further.
Again, hence Mizuno doing the high launch.
Which is why they've done the high launch this year.
Yeah. But all else being equal, lofts being the same and things, then it's an interesting one.
Yeah,
because the tech on the new head should certainly outdo the blade. But I can't. Yeah, anything's possible in this game, isn't it? But it doesn't. It does defy logic. That's for sure. Yeah,
certainly.
Another Nigel would like to know what you were fed as a baby.
Lots.
Left in Miracle Grow. Right.
So let me pass you standard Stealth 2.
Standard Stealth 2, non-adjustable.
Look, this is a head they've always done very, very well. Whether it was go back to RBZ, the Stage 2, the Sim Max, Sim 2 Max, all of the models surrounding the fixed fairway. This is a head that TaylorMade have.
I mean, they've really made their name in the fairway woods with that RBZ Stage 2. That was the one that really put everyone on alert again of, oh, hang on.
Well, I mean,
these are strong.
First gen was almost too strong,
yeah.
But went like an absolute cannon. And even it's only a couple of years back, someone walked in one of those that they liked. You did look and go,
even still, you think you're in a bit of bother, but you can
give more forgiveness now.
You can find other things about it as to why you can improve. But from a pure, if someone walked in with one of those and said, I want to hit it further, it's not going to happen out the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's fitted well. So ultimately, I think they've just continued the tech, but just made it more forgiving and more forgiving and more forgiving. So
yeah, and again, better, nice sole shape, seats well. These ones, because they're fixed, we're just using the stock shaft, so it might kind of affect it very slightly, but we're still going to see relevant flight.
You do notice just how deep they are, just how tall they are when you put them down at the ball. You put the ball down, and visually from the top, the club's above the.
And that would probably
for
be
some golfers, that's
possibly the only thing that I think where other models and brands have gone shallower and look a little friendlier.
Yes.
But you get someone who traps it a little bit, that the steeper crown is a good thing.
See if I can trap one and see what it does.
Go off like an exercet's one thing. Yeah, so you've got a strong launch onto it, but it spins at 3,000. Yeah, again, it sits exactly where you would expect this head to sit.
Yeah.
I think what they've done well over the last few models, I think I've noticeably felt them get better across the face. I think it used to be get them, great, miss them,
good luck.
But I think the last couple of progressions from the Sim Max onwards, I think that performance across the face has been really enhanced.
I think that came with the introduction of twist face into the fairway woods.
Yeah, but I think just that feeling of stability. I think the twist face helps with the shot profiles a little bit, but I always used to feel you'd really notice a miss hit out of them.
When did the V-Steel come in?
V-Steel came back in with...
Sim 2?
No, Sim Titanium had V-Steel.
Which is when the changes really came about with the forgiving, so that explains it.
And the V-Steel is the
Sorry, yeah, I say that as just a passing comment.
You go back, I mean, V-Steel, the original V-Steel was when I was playing full time, 2003, 2004. Whisper it quietly. That shaping there, that flat section, which helps the interaction with the turf, getting it sliding through. That's something that whenever a brand goes back to a tech, it tells you how good it was. because they've clearly tried and come back around and gone, no, that was really good.
Yeah, which happens.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of their
yeah.
research and development. They're supposed to get it right at times.
Yeah,
with permanent
paradigm, the principle's the same as FTIZ.
Yeah, it's just a more forgiving, more up-to-date version.
Yeah, the structure's just better now to achieve better results.
But even that, from a higher flightage...
Stupidly long. Yeah, that's launched
so that was me trying... Sorry, the first one I was trying to trap it after we were saying about it, that shape being better for someone that traps it. But that second one was more a normal
neutral
swing for me.
Dead flat angle of attack.
And that thing's gone like a rocket
But again,
ship.
it's a bit like my shots with the Cobra in that it's not high launching. But then that's that deeper face.
Yeah, because actually
not
that's come
high
out
launching, but the spin's really pretty strong. Which...
Quick, just to clarify, Mark's asking, you mentioned you're using stock shafts for this test. Is that OEM stock or the aftermarket versions of those that you have? I hear OEM shafts are not as good. Maybe we could just touch on OEM versus aftermarket. In
these fixed ones, for the moment, we're just using the OEM stock one. In all the others, we're using the representative shafts that Matt and I play with. So in any of the interchangeable ones, we're using, I had to switch the tip stripped on the Kiyoshi Purple that I use. So we're using the Ventus Black, the aftermarket Ventus Black 7X. In these ones, we're just using the stock one because, we've just got them built in to compare with. The head will outdo a good chunk of what the shaft does from a spin flight point of view. But in terms of having everything up there on the wall on fixed, because there are so relatively few fixed heads now, we don't have the exact shaft to compare. So it's easier to have the built one, hit it, still get representative flights, but in everything else, it's our own shaft. So, and a lot of the time now, the stock shafts are a lot of the time they are an entry-level version. With the TaylorMade options, they have gone to very, very well-recognised brands of shaft with Fujikura, the Ventus, Verticomus TR, and Speedo NX, which are two very, very high-quality aftermarket shafts. But these ones are essentially a version developed for use in these clubs. They're not currently available to purchase, unlike some of the other models in brands. You can purchase them aftermarket. These ones are not possible to purchase in aftermarket. They are currently only being used in TaylorMade.
But they do, some of the key ingredients are out.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So in the Ventus series, the Velocore isn't in there. The Speedo NX is just nowhere near as higher grade of material. Otherwise, the unit cost will be way too high. So they do cost engineer them for the stock branded stock models rather than aftermarket stock. So then moving on to the HD. So the HD series has the 3-wood lofts at 16, so a degree higher loft. This one does sit a little bit shallower, but it's a noticeably deeper head as well. So this is a club.
More CC, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit bigger CC. It is a club. The HD series is designed for a little bit more spin. It's a high draw, essentially, is what HD I believe stands for. So it is a little bit of a draw-based shape, but it's also designed to get it kicking up in the air.
It does sit a touch. Just looks a touch close, but we're talking marginal. All right, let me just hit that. Same with that last one there, just that kind of neutral attack angle swing.
So again, similar kind of ball speed. Yeah, and then straight away there. So a little bit down on that one, but so same launch angle for 2 degrees down as dead flat, but spins then up 600-700 revs. So certainly something that we've seen with particularly fairway and hybrid in this model, very, very good at getting a little bit of flight and a little bit of spin.
I mean, they said when they went to the HD with this one, they said, we know that the other one doesn't spin enough for most golfers. We know we need to do something about it, and proof's in the pudding there.
Yeah, and I think now that was a gap for TaylorMade. I think previously there was the draw model that had a little bit more loft, but it wasn't necessarily that much more spin. It didn't really ever feel quite as stable as I think it should have done. And I think this one's for this category of club, I think is a definite move forward. Something that's much more user friendly. And I think from a feel point of view, I think the TaylorMade fairway woods, the fixed ones, the Stealth 2 and 2 HD, just may feel more user-friendly. They feel like you can hit them most places on the face and get away with it, whereas historically I think you knew about it when you mishit them a little bit.
Yeah. Let's give it one more.
Give it one more, yeah. And we'll go to a slightly different model.
You can jump back in and try something a little different. Oh, that's high, right?
That'll go high.
That'll go
Come
high.
out of that one a little bit.
Yeah, that one I just got a little bit behind that. Depending on the fact that that is too light a swing weight. But
Question in from Nigel. What profile would a Ventus TR Red Velocore 45-inch shaft with 2 inches tipped be similar to?
So
let's not forget what happens to Velocore when you tip it.
Yeah, we do know that if you tip a Ventus shaft with Velocore, that it actually makes the tip softer. So common theory would be, and the only way you know about this is through someone doing the tipping and the testing and finding it out. Because in principle, you shorten the tip end of the section of the shaft, the narrowest bit, and you stiffen it. Because of the Velocore in there, you actually soften it because you're taking out Velocore material. So what you've actually done is weaken the tip slightly. So by tipping it so 2 inches. So you've taken quite a lot of the stiff material out of the tip. TR Red, well, the TR bit stiffens the handle. You know, that weave in the handle firms that up. The Red has a bit of softness in the tip, now a little bit more. So I think the question was, what profile are you taking it close to?
yeah, like what would be similar to it?
Yeah, question was, what profile would a Ventus TR Red Velocore with 2 inches tipped be similar to?
Well, it's fairly stiff handle section, neutral midsection, softer tip. So it's going to be, if you're looking at comparable models from another brand.
That new CQ is probably not a million miles away.
Not even, I think a little bit of a softer handle though. Yeah, the CQ, isn't it? That's been really nice and lively. A little bit higher balance. Probably taking it a bit, again, it's the stiffer butt section which makes the TRs really a little bit more, I'm not going to go as far as saying unique, quite particular in the way they're going to feel and swing.
Yeah, because the logic behind that would be for something else that's similar in the upper section would be something like a Nemesis, but then it doesn't have the same feel down the bottom end.
Yeah.
So it's
and a little more counterweight.
yeah.
Shako, these are all 3 woods the guys are testing. Are they all similarly lofted?
Yeah,
they're all 15 or
14 and a half on the Cobra LS. But the rest are all the standard loft in their 15-degree loft, all in their standard setting. So yeah, I mean, you could argue, does it take it closer to one of the TPTs from a tip section point of view? But then it's stiffer in the butt section.
Yeah, it kind of puts it in its own little.
Yeah.
I guess it puts it in its own little universe, really.
I think that firmness in the butt with a little bit of kick in the tip, there really are very, very few that are going to compare to it.
Because even if you go
from a feel point of view,
like Acra high balance to get the feel up the top, then it still plays too stout down the bottom to play like the. Yeah, it kind of does really put it in its own world.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, not a lot else that compares to it. Yeah. So going to go to another model that's not really considered too much, but I think their woods are strengthening a lot. It's the Mizuno, the ST-Z. So got the X on its way in shortly, which we'll be able to compare as well. But this one's the lower spindle. It's quite a deep face, this one. So similar to the STG driver in terms of the principles. Got a bit of weight at the back, but it's a very classic shaped head. They've got the weave on the crown, so makes it look a little bit narrow at the front, and then you've got that lighter section back there. So visually quite an interesting head. Quite an even shape actually. The running bird sits right in the middle of the face as well.
It's kind of just a little more of a layer is the wrong word, but out there version of the aerojet from a top-down look.
Yeah.
That little bit of the carbon, but nothing else really going on. Deep face.
I think what's notable is actually how central that marking is to the face. So a lot of them, particularly with the drivers last week, were saying they sit a little on the inside of the face. This again is a bit like the Cobra, and it's quite a straight face, but it's quite a deep one. This is not a head that you're going to look at, and anyone wanting to see a bit of launch, this is not really a head that's going to instill huge confidence, but again, for someone who's a little bit stronger launch, it gets into the bottom of the ball. Actually, that face makes it look like there's quite a bit to hit with. I'm just going to see if I can move, having stood there for several
briefly,
minutes.
Danny Smith, in the market for a new driver, don't know whether to go for Callaway Paradigm, TSR2, or any recommendations. Danny, we did a Friday Live last Friday, and we compared all the drivers against each other, but really there is no substitute for actually hands-on fitting with an experienced fitter.
Yeah, I think this year in particular,
the subtleties between them.
Yeah, there are lots of very good heads, like we're seeing now with the fairways. There are lots of, the ball speed's good on all of them. They're all good for very slightly different things, and depending on where your strike pattern is, where your misses can be the bit that determines which head works better for you or not. Particularly with drivers, there are some that are noticeably better if you take something like the Ping, the LST, or the Max. A little bit toe side's really stable. The Titleist, the TSR2, a little bit of a toe miss, really stable. A little bit of a heel strike. The Paradigm, Callaway's always been very good out of it. The Paradigm ball speed retention has been great. So it's one where I think the only way to be absolutely certain, and considering now the outlay you're going to have to put out for any of those to buy them, please test them, because you could end up.
You can make two mistakes before you get the right one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So very traditional shape. Oh, a little bit stiff, left that a bit open. Again, back into a fairly solid feel. That'll be a spinny one, because that was, actually, considering, not bad at all, actually.
For an open face that was a cut across it, the fact that's at 3.5 is almost a little bit of that concern again. Is it too punchy?
That was hit. So stronger launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lower launch. So that ties in with that deeper face,
which we see across from. You look at the standard Stealth 2. You look at the aerojet LS. They all kind of fit that same bracket of lower launch, lower spin.
I mean, it's not, considering where the launch has gone to, it's not silly low spin.
No, when I saw the 10, I was expecting to see a 2.6, 2.7, and thought we were in big trouble.
And I think the only thing, I guess, with that, if your misses toe side, then that could start to see that knuckling down there. But again, if you're someone who squeezes it a little bit and you're looking to control that launch angle, I said Mizuno. The difficulty for Mizuno is they themselves have not shouted about their products for the last few years and almost underplayed them a little bit. So it's not naturally something that I think players are going to gravitate towards. But in terms of overall performance for someone looking for a stronger flight, a good overall head.
Great question from Mark Griffin. What are the main effects you see from players when shifting between counterbalance and non-counterbalance shafts? Is it just a timing thing, or do you see flight differences?
The biggest thing is going to be a timing thing, because if a counterbalance either really suits you or really doesn't, and I think that's something that you can't make a heavy head work with a counterbalance shaft, and vice versa, if it doesn't suit you in the first place. So the biggest thing, you're either going to be, if you counterbalance doesn't suit you, you're going to lose the club on the way down or on the way back. You're just going to lose where that bottom end is, and it won't drop down into plane. Similarly, if you suit counterbalance and playing tip balance, then it's going to get dropping behind you. You're going to have to really heave to fetch it. So either way, your strike and dispersion are going to go off if you're using the wrong one. And then the counterbalance itself doesn't affect flight whatsoever. It's just how you move and can you deliver the head. What will happen is you'll just flight it consistently with the right one. I might as well carry on with this.
Yeah, I get. These probably fit a little more for.
So, Titleist. So just received the TSR ones. Visually very similar with the weight positioning to TSR2. Slightly bigger footprint, but the lighter base frame weight on the head.
Did you, just out of interest, did you weigh it to see how different head weight was?
About 3 or 4 grams.
Okay.
So I've had to put, in order to get these sort of matching up from a swinging point of view, a little bit extra weight in the back. But yeah, I mean they're designed. Their kind of aim point is slightly lighter shaft, lighter weight, helps to get it through. The same principle as the HL and the Pings. But this is one of the heads where I would anticipate us seeing a noticeable difference in that flight profile.
13.5.
So base loft is still 15. So it's not a change in loft. You can see a little bit more launch, but where that spin's gone to. Now that is a bit necky.
I was going to say, was that a slightly...
So let's see if I can get it a bit nearer the middle of the face.
Did it feel necky though, that first one?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
So that from a...
Yeah, so there you go. So you can see with that, it's both are a little bit heel side, but very little drop off in ball speed. But the spin's that 400 to 500 revs, maybe higher. So I can see us doing this head quite a lot for a moderate speed.
Yes.
You know, that's one of the characteristics across the board brand-wise, that there aren't a lot of heads that retain spin, and that was when TSR2 launched last year.
And they said they got it closer to the 3. It was a
Yeah, we all kind of went ooh, because the TSI2 retained the spin, which was a great characteristic of the TSI2. Whereas if I go TSR2 now, it's a little bit more compact. Let's check one thing on the look.
Whilst you're doing that, Chris, thanks for the question. Whilst we don't have any finance schemes in place, such as Klarna or PayPal, we can discuss part payment during or after your fitting. Yeah. What do we charge for the extra for the build service? Well, the prices we charge are typically 10 to 30% more than off the rack. The difference being for a completely bespoke club built by ourselves on site, and it depends on what we're building for you. So whether it's with a stock shaft or a premium aftermarket shaft, but one thing to consider is we will always work to a budget, and yeah, you're at zero risk of the equipment not performing. We'll guarantee performance. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So TSR2, a little more compact. I was having a look at the head just to see whether face depth was any different, but not really. It's just a little bit of a tighter shape. But we should see, if I can find not right out the heel.
In warm-up, Simon did say in warm-up, he said, I tend to find a little bit of a heel strike with the fairway woods, but today it doesn't seem that way.
Well, still a little bit there, but again, so what we can see there, I actually generated a decent bit of launch on that. That shot the launch as hard, but the spin's down 200-300 revs, and that's that little bit of a slightly heely one. If I get this centered, come out a little bit lower, trying to make darn sure I don't. That was just thin. But as a head, I was quite surprised at how strong the spin got on this one, from where last model was. So this has always been, the TSI2 was a head that helped just to pop the spin up a little bit. This is very much a mid forward flight. So for me to get a heely one, the previous one, and spin it at 3.6, that's not a high spin at all. No.
If that was 4.6, then we'd be okay. This is a high spinning head, but
I think they're such classic heads.
Yeah.
Titleist, I think the TSI, but TSR series now in particular, what you can play a Titleist head, get the lovely classic look and sound that a lot of players like, and not lose. That was a pretty rank strike, but it's still 146 efficiency. I think your ball speed retention across the board, that's where I think the biggest differences we're seeing, whether it's driver or fairways, last couple of models, we're really seeing that ramp up now.
Yeah, there's no longer that gap in performance that you tended to see from Titleist, where you'd always be, I'm not convinced Titleist is the right one because it's not going to do X, Y, or Z versus something else when it's in the bay, whereas now it's... it does compete.
Yeah. Got a question from Chaco. Looking into a 5-wood to hit off the deck, not the longest, so need a strong flight that low spin models offer, but also understand that a steeper landing angle helps hold the greens. Any recommendations?
Well, you're asking for 2 clubs in one there, I'm afraid. You're asking for this. You're not going to get the strong flight and the steep angle of descent. So the first thing you've got to do is decide what's more important. Are you wanting your 5-wood to give you the loft to get the launch and then come out strong? If that's the case, that's a very good model. Stealth 2 always been very good for that. Having said that, and your Paradigm could also work very well, and the Cobra. If you're looking for a little bit more descent, it's hard to look beyond the ping, or maybe even TSR2 gives enough
TSR1 as well.
TSR1,
yeah.
but yeah, the ping's going to give it a little more up and out relative to loft, I think, more than anything else. And then actually you've now got, for the other flight, you've got several models you can go to.
Yeah,
but
yeah, you just need to
not
pick one of the two, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And even from a visual, as we were discussing earlier with the aerojet, potentially the 5-wood in that as a shape for feeling like you can hit down on it a little more with a bit more confidence.
Yeah,
that slightly
possibly.
smaller shape being almost like a hybrid.
In the LS one.
Yeah, in the LS in being that tall head.
Yeah, it's quite a compact head size, the 5-wood in that LS. Let's say almost even close to the utility wood Callaway. It's really quite compact. And going to the TSR3, weight forward a bit more, again, a little bit more compact shape, slightly deeper look. And this is a head, obviously we've had it in a few months now, and definitely a head that if someone, again, a trappy, spinny player, this has been a head that's just pumped it out forwards.
Yeah, they're definitely covering all the bases with their models this year.
Yeah, if I get this in remotely near the toe, there is no spin on this thing. And so I've come out of it and hit it high right as a... but good, I mean, ball speed, considering that horrible face angle. Let's just give that another one to get a representative face angle. Really solid feel. It's classic kind of feel. Those are just, again, that's Healy. Ball speed retention good. That's just a Healy squared the face up when I've caught it miles out the neck. There you go. We called it earlier. Let's see if I can avoiding the toe on this, but for whatever reason, I'm managing to spoon it high.
Yeah.
But again, spooned high right and spin. If I can, I'm going to give this one more to represent a bit of data, because I'm not screwing this up with a centered strike. So that's the stronger flight, yeah. So
2.7 all of a sudden.
Yes, I've just got a little on top of it there, but I've not heel faded it. And you can see where the spins come down right into the 2.7. So as a head, what we can see, if your strike's heel side, it will pop the spin a bit. But if you can get it, if your strike point's neutral to slightly toe side neutral, that is a really strong hitting head from a flight point of view. So again, just such a classic clean look. Definitely, I feel definitely suits someone who squeezes it a little bit more, because I think when you shallow it out, it comes out like an absolute train. But gives you the option to go 16.5 head and not have a load of spin potentially.
Yeah, and they do offer that as well, don't they?
So you better hit this one. So Srixon.
Yes, a brand typically not, a bit like Mizuno, not known for their woods.
I think we're seeing their products more and more, and I think that the trust in their products is getting more and more. They're now, they've got multiple major winners. They've got, they've got a lot more tour play, and the strength of product on the wood side is really, really coming on. I think. Last year's model was a surprisingly strong hitting head, almost a bit too strong. I felt it really came out low and flat and low spin.
A mini driver when required.
Yeah. And this one, pretty similar, although feels a bit better across the face.
Yeah, feels better, looks better, sounds better. So you've got, just to take a brief look at it, carbon crown across the top. You've got that little curvature with the arc, with the lines here on the back edges. Very simple, very plain head. When you look down at the ball, you really don't see a whole lot because the colours are all very kind of one tone. Face is a very similar colour to the top. So just from a kind of a viewing down at it, it's a very understated, simple look to it.
Yeah, it's a sort of
fixed hosel again.
Yeah, very kind of classic Srixon sort of look, really.
Yes, which is at times has been their downfall, that it's so understated.
Yeah, it doesn't shout at all, does it?
Right. So yesterday I gave this a test and it went a silly long way.
Yeah, so ball speed strong.
That was a little trappy. Actually, it wasn't trappy. That felt quite trappy, but it was bang on zero on attack, but it's coming out at 8 degrees.
Maybe just a touch lower on the face, or maybe kind of just hooded, just de-lofted a little bit. But again, ball speed very strong. Proportionally, ignoring the fact that it's very strong no matter what club you're hitting.
Yeah, efficiency was very, very good. For a miss, clearly a miss of centre.
Yeah, so let's see where that one goes. Flight it up a little bit more. But I think, yeah, again, we're into it. Again, it's a head that's not. It's not necessarily that high launch.
No.
And it's certainly. Yeah, I think the only thing possibly with this head is they don't do a forward in it. The
Right.
15 degree can be really quite. I mean, some of the numbers that we've seen in other times you're hitting have been that's been kind of low 3000s on spin.
Let me see if I can. Let me have one more hack at it and see if I can get this number down. Oh, and then you bottom it. It's not what you need.
Yeah.
Nothing like doing it live, eh?
Well, keep it real.
That's a great stinger flight. 2 launch.
But again, there's no drop off in ball speed.
No.
So again, consistency, that consistent pattern that we're seeing through all of the models. That ball speed, that was very low on the face. And
That was low heel, I'll tell you that now by strike, and it's
something that a lot of players off the fairway have struggled with over the years. You catch it a bit low on the face, it comes out dead.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No.
Absolutely not anymore. So you give that one more. I'm going to grab just the other tip from next door.
That was squared up. Yeah, that one went. Yeah, that's gone far enough. So you just needed to walk away, that's all it was. And there's the 183.
Yeah, and there's a strike so strongish on launch, but
yeah, 10 launch, 3 spin, it's
3,
almost
1,
a
3,
little...
2 on spin, that's punchy.
Yeah, that's a little too low spin in the grand scheme of things.
Well, I think, yeah, and there are always going to be players who add loft, flight it up.
Yes.
So actually, again, for that player, that's a really good head. But it's not necessarily a particularly draw biased head.
No,
it's
it's
a
very
very square head.
Very, very simple. Big fan of it.
Yeah, it's a very clean head shape. It's whether it's a very subtle mark on the top. It's a very straight face to it. It sounds like we're being critical of that. It's just a lot of the other brands are shouting a little bit more.
Where it's so different from the rest. It just kind of makes you look at it and go, well, why is it so understated?
Yeah, I think that's just the brand all over, isn't it? You think how simple they've made the irons look, the range of irons, they've pared those down a little bit over the years. It's almost like they want to say, go on, hit it and see what it does. Because
let the numbers do the talking and that's it.
Looks. And so from a look point of view,
that's
as
a
David
different.
asked for, that's again very, very different look. So David asking, so are we going to hit the PXGs, the Gen 5 here? They're shouting about what they've put in the crown, different material, lighter crown. It's going to be a little vivid for some. I think the woods have historically been, the irons have historically been their strength. I don't think there's any doubt in saying that. Very consistent performance. The woods, when they get it, there have been models they've got it really right, and there's been a little bit of an up and down, I would say, in terms of performance.
Yeah.
So they do this, the standard one, they do the XF, which is a little bit deeper, a little more forgiving as well, slightly shallower. And this has got a fairly deep face, but what they haven't done is they haven't painted in the grooves. So
it's not framing it to say, look how big it is.
So whilst they're there, they're unpainted. So, and we've had conversations with Tony Johnson about grooves on wood faces, and when they paint them in, you're filling the groove up. Actually, you want the groove there to get the debris and the moisture away from the contact. So potentially a very good reason for not painting it. That grey crown really highlights that front edge.
It's almost a bit like the Versa with putters
Yeah.
in the white, kind of that white section shouting at the front line. It's the same here with that sort of mid-grey section shouting at this is square, I promise.
yeah, and I think you're going to have some people who will really focus on that front bit, and almost that differentiation in colour on the backside almost blends out.
Yeah.
And then you get other players that are going to really see the total size of the club head. But say very, very distinctive. looks, I say it's quite it's a simple head shape. It's a very kind of uniform, rounded head shape. It's one of those I can't work out whether I like. It's something that I like.
Whether you like the look of
or whether it draws the eye a little bit. But
find out in a minute.
We'll find out, yeah. So a little bit lower on the face. But again, solid, considering the strike point wasn't up the face, launched a bit lower, but spin stayed in check well. I think definitely feels like you've got to get the weight, get the club head into the bottom of the ball with this one. Oh, that's just, sorry, that's me being, that's totally human, not club. That was just stood out of that completely. Coach wouldn't be happy with that. That was hit well. That was a really solid.
So that's that one down into the bottom of the ball. That'll be a good test of it.
Yeah, so you got to the base.
Oh, that's a little low.
Get it. So again, deeper face. Get it up the face. Get the strike point on it. Bang! Out comes the flight, and then you're in line with the TSR3 from a spin point of view.
Yeah.
So and then the XF a little bit shallower, and that's going to give a little bit more flight. It's going to be easier to collect it. So that's a pretty punchy ball flight. Again, 15-degree standard loft. A bit more of a distinctive sound. It's a little bit of a different note because of the construction. But again, strong ball flight. Yeah, really strong ball.
Yeah.
But not as low launch as the Mizuno. So
yeah, I guess it sits somewhere in the middle of those kind of low launch, low spin fairway woods. It's not quite the most extreme, but
technically a bit of versatility in terms of moving the weight around. You can weight the outer two with the heavier weights, the inner two, just to move the CG around from a technically kind of either a strike point or a slight draw fade bias point of view. So actually fairly versatile as well. So I think the sticking point of whether someone's going to like it or not is actually more the
crown than anything else.
But you like drivers, it's across the board. They're all, it's all strong. There's lots of ball speed. For me, 150 odd, to you 180 odd. But in proportion, they're all in those sort of mid 140s. There's only absolute rotters of strikes that drop down below 145 for both of us. So one thing, currently driver and fairway wood, and inevitably we'll do a hybrid one as well. I think the similar thing is going to be consistency of ball speed is where, it was the big talk out in the States about not having drop off in ball speed on drivers. They're obviously focusing more on the driver talk this year, but I think in fairways it's very much the same thing. But what it does show is getting the right head style for your delivery and for the flight that you want. You've really got to pick the head based on that.
Yes.
I think. Because there is a head out there for everyone, depending on whether it's draw bias, launch it a bit, draw bias, knock it down a little bit.
It's probably looking at what we've done there. There's probably 3 heads out there for everyone. It's just finding then from a looks or a feel which one of the 3 suits you best. But there's multiple that do the high. There's multiple that do the draw. There's multiple that do the high and the draw tend to go together, but they have the options there. And then there's the ones that really trap it out there and
there's some proper
fire it low.
there this
So
year, aren't there?
just depends what you need this year.
So unless there are any more questions that have come in.
No other questions from the floor, and you guys need to eat your salads before your lunchtime fittings.
But so I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you'd like us to do the hybrid one, I'm sure we'll do that anyway. It may not be next week, maybe a few weeks' time for that. There are still a couple of bits and pieces to come in for that to complete everything. So any questions, just Father will answer them down the line as soon as we can. And say anything else you'd like to see us do let us know. And say if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the bell button, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday for the next live. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.